I graduated college in 2005 and I took the LSATs. Everything was going great. I was actually accepted to law school and I said to myself, I'm not ready to go to law school yet. Like I was just mentally not ready.
Hello! This is CPA Career Path Podcast with Rosey Flaherty, CPA MSA, where we dive into thrilling journeys in the world of accounting.
Minnie, I'm so excited to have you on my podcast today.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. We have a special guest today. Minnie is a CPA and the president of Minnie Lau CPA PC. Minnie, before we dive in your CPA journey today, can you introduce a little bit more about yourself to the audience?
Sure. My name is Minnie. I run a boutique tax firm out of the San Francisco Bay Area. Been living there now for about 20-something years. We specialize in helping high-earning W-2 earners and crypto folks in helping with individual taxes. So that means we file their taxes. We also identify and implement tax strategies to help them significantly reduce their tax liability. So we have a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you for the introduction. Let's go from very beginning, your CPA journey. From your college time life, why did you go with accounting, not finance, not marketing, not any other majors?
Well, yes, that's actually a really interesting story because I had never thought I was going to be an accountant to begin with. When I went to college, I actually have a major in legal studies with a minor in public policy from UC Berkeley. So my path was always to go to law school.
So what made you change your mind?
Really good question. I volunteered for this lovely organization called Tax Aid. It's a nonprofit that helps low-income folks get their taxes done during tax time. So kind of similar to Avita, but not exactly Avita. And I volunteered with them during my junior year of college. Really, really liked it. Did it again my senior year. And, between that and helping my mom and dad with their tax returns on TurboTax, that was how I got exposed to taxes, and I unexpectedly liked it a lot.
I'm just curious, is that because your family or your parents suggest you to be a lawyer? Because it seems to be very typical career for Asian family.
This is going to be very embarrassing, but I was never that great at calculus. After the second semester of calculus, I said, this is not going to work for me. So that ruled out basically engineering. That ruled out anything to do with the sciences. And so my parents were now grasping at straws and says, maybe you should go be a lawyer. So yes, that was kind of the direction they were going. But, what I really genuinely liked about numbers was it always made sense to me, even though, me and calculus just really didn't get along.
You do not need calculus to be a CPA. Not at all. You don't need to be excellent at accounting, but yes, numbers make sense. But what I learned is that the more I work or I move up in my career, numbers are great, but you have Excel, you have calculator, you have all the tools to do the numbers for you, all the software, and now AI show up as well. And so, yes, numbers are great for accountants, but it's not everything. It's not everything. So now my next question for you, that now you changed to become an accountant. Do you ever think that, I may come back to be a lawyer?
Interesting story. I graduated college in 2005 and I took the LSATs. Everything was going great. I was actually accepted to law school and I said to myself, I'm not ready to go to law school yet. Like I was just mentally not ready. So I went and, worked a full-time job. My first job was a claims adjuster at Progressive Insurance. Like I kid you not, I can crawl underneath a car and I can tell you if something's broken, whether it's a repair job or a replace job. It's an extremely useful skill, even many decades later. And while I was, exploring life and just, getting mentally ready to go to law school, the longer I waited, the more I realized I really didn't want to go. It was a 3-year commitment, and I felt like I was doing it because I was supposed to, not because I wanted to. And that was when I learned that San Jose State had a 1-year master's in accounting program. And I said to myself, 1 year's a lot less school than 3 years. And I said, well, if all else fails, I can do this 1-year program and then go to law school. And then I could be, like a tax attorney or something. So that was the direction I kind of went.
But like when you went to master degree, it seems that in your mindset, you focus in tax. Have you ever thought about like being auditor, advisor, or something like that outside of being a tax specialist or tax CPA?
This was a conversation that actually was very prevalent, during the recruitment process. Because, at the time when we were kind of going into recruiting season, looking for an internship, eventually getting a job, they always basically ask you, hey, you kind of have to declare which direction you want to go. Do you want to do audit or do you want to do tax? Good news was I had taken a couple of auditing classes and I passed, but I really, really enjoyed so much more when the tax classes were coming down the pipeline. And I realized that, I'm sure there's a lot of really cool auditing jobs out there. And, I did do a stint in audit during my time at KPMG, but, at the time, I kind of knew that my interest was always going to be in tax. Not to mention at the time I was going through recruiting, there were a lot more people interested in audit, which made interviewing for a tax position really, really interesting. I had the pick of the big four. The whole thing was just like absolutely great. A lot of my peers were kind of nail biting because they knew there was a capacity, but I was probably one of the first in my cohort to have multiple job offers. So, not to try to sway people to go join tax versus audit, but, it just resonated with me.
I see. And I noticed that you start your first job at KPMG. And you also like receive a lot of awards like KPMG Encore Award or like KPMG Recruiting Award for Excellence in Recruiting and Mentoring. That's pretty impressive. And you worked there for about 2 years only. So I would love to hear more experience, more information about your experience at KPMG. What did you learn over there? Did you feel overwhelmed? Did you feel too much work? How about the hours? What you like, what you did not like?
So I will start with what I loved about KPMG. KPMG had some of the nicest, most helpful people in the organization. I really liked the culture. I liked the people I was working with. There wasn't a team I was assigned to where, I was happy to go to work because, at the end of the day, when you're trapped in a small office in the middle of an audit, you really want to like the people you're working with. Where, with regards to, lifestyle, I don't want to necessarily sugarcoat it. There is a lot of work in public accounting. And, I remember, during, year-end closing, I was routinely going home at around 12:30, 1 a.m. in the morning. And, your butt's in a chair at 8:30 the next day. And so, in terms of, yes, work can be, very long and hard, but, there were fun times there too. The reason why I ended up leaving KPMG was because my primary client went from KPMG to EMY. My primary client was Apple. So for the longest time, KPMG was the auditor for Apple, and I was based in the Silicon Valley office. And so my 90% of my billable hours was sourced to Apple every year, and it was absolutely great because same place year round. My particular piece of the audit puzzle, even though I was in the tax department, I was a member of working on the foreign provision, and so I was able to read French. I was able to read Chinese and obviously English. So they shoved me where I could be useful. This was before there was really good Google Translate or, ChatGPT or all that good stuff. And so being multilingual really, really helped because there were a lot of foreign subsidiaries and many times they would respond in a foreign language. So having me doing that type of work was, super duper fun. But unfortunately, the only constant in life is change. And so, after, Apple switched auditors to EY, and I'm sure the story may resonate to some people. You lose a client, you get assigned to a different client, maybe not the same kind of client. And, and unfortunately, I mean, most of the people listening in might be a little bit too young to remember what the recession was. And so when, there were layoffs, people that didn't have a regular engagement were often the first folks to go. So, I really had a genuinely lovely experience at KPMG. It was really hard work, but I learned a lot. And I'm kind of happy that I was part of that organization.
That's amazing. And Apple, wow, I use Apple products every day. I believe a lot of people in the audience probably use Apple products every day as well. And that's pretty cool when you be a part of the team to work to do the projects for one of pretty famous companies in the world. And then, so you decide to leave KPMG and move to True Partners Consulting. Is that a small CPA firm?
Actually, they were quite large, based out of Chicago. I believe they have merged and they're no longer called True Partners Consulting. I think it's Eli Tilly now. They merged and became Eli Tilly. And if I dropped the wrong firm name, I'm so sorry. We can actually look this up later. But anyway, they're not True Partners Consulting anymore. But they were a mid-sized firm originally headquartered in Chicago. This was around the time where KPMG, I didn't have that permanent client, and I decided that, hey, maybe a change was a good idea. So I switched over, and unfortunately, this was around the time that, the recession was in, and, this wasn't anybody's fault, but, they had to trim some numbers. So, my career took a very different path. And so I didn't spend too much time there. But again, absolutely lovely people. Met some good friends that are working for some really large firms now, tax directors and at some of the large startups. So it's super cool how successful, the peers you hang out with earlier in your career have become. It's really exciting to see.
That's awesome. You still keep in touch with them?
Oh, yes, most definitely.
Awesome.
Friends on LinkedIn, friends on Facebook. And, once in a blue moon, there's a wedding or something, we show up.
Only show up on those special occasions only.
Right, absolutely.
And then you stay there for about a year only. And then you work on another, is that CPA firm, taxpayer advocacy panel. And then you work at IRS. So can you share with me the experience in the next CPA firm? I'm more excited to talk about IRS experience.
Okay. So the Taxpayer Advocacy Panel is actually a volunteer committee with the IRS. The reason why I had to terminate my term with them was because you can't be a current employee of the IRS to sit on that committee. So It was supposed to be a 2-year term. And what the Taxpayer Advocacy Panel does is each state has members of the Taxpayer Advocacy Panel, and we do recruitment events up and down the state to talk about, we take suggestions and concerns and criticism to the Internal Revenue Service, and we bring it in-house and we workshop it with the internal stakeholders at the Internal Revenue Service. It's still very much alive and well. If anyone wants to invoke change with the Internal Revenue Service, highly, highly, highly recommend considering joining the Taxpayer Advocacy Panel. It is a volunteer position, but they do reimburse for travel, and you get to meet the coolest people from all over the country, people who are patriotic in their own way of wanting to help fix the system from within. It was an absolutely awesome experience.
Ooh. So is it difficult to get accepted to be on this panel?
I think that, it's a little bit about timing, because there are only so many positions available. And because there are multi-year terms, not every single state is recruiting for a candidate every single year, but they do a rotation. And they also have alternates. So in the situation of me not being able to complete my term, they had to call one of the alternates in to finish. But considering I was joining the IRS, I don't think they were too terribly upset with me that I had to bail early.
So IRS, that's pretty cool that you are a customer service representative for about a year. So during that year, what did you learn the most? What did you like the most? And what did you not like the most?
Okay, so I need to give you a little bit of backstory here. I was laid off from True Partners Consulting, and I need you to remember what life was like during the recession, where nobody was hiring for anything. I have a master's degree. I had passed 3 of my 4 sections of the CPA exam, and I was unemployed, and I had to pay the rent. And the only position that was hiring within the IRS was a customer service representative, somebody that picked up the phone. For a lot of us that call the IRS regularly, you always wonder about the people on the other end on the call, right? They're constantly answering. Yeah, it's a crazy call center. It's absolutely it's just very, very frenetic. But, that was what I did at the time, because my thinking was, you know what? Maybe this is a stepping stone for me to matriculate over and become an internal revenue agent, which was what my next, path was. I had thought I was going to do it, but, they were hiring for people to answer phones. So I went. And I remember them basically saying, aren't you a little bit overqualified for this job? And I said, yes, I am very overqualified for this job, but you should still hire me anyway, because while I'm still here, I'm going to be the best customer service representative you're going to have. To think everybody had a good laugh there. I went through the training, and I actually answered phones for, a little over a year. And I have to say, even though it sounded like a job that doesn't require a lot of skills, I am so much better as a firm owner, a CPA, just an all-around human being by being on that side of the desk, answering phone calls from frustrated taxpayers to CPAs to tax lawyers and, anything that comes in between. Because you hope the person on the other end know what they're doing. I hope that for the people that I answer calls for, I was the person that they were looking for. I have heard a lot of appreciation from tax pros on the other line that says, "Oh my God, you know what I'm talking about." And it's like, yes, I know what you're talking about, and I can fix this for you. And if I can't fix this for you, here's where you need to go instead. And so this was an interesting opportunity. But during that time, we're looking at, where we are at with the timeline. There was furloughs. Like, I guess life hasn't really changed all that too terribly much recently, has it? Given the government volatility with the Internal Revenue Service and whatnot. Furloughs were also around. We had government shutdowns. So yes, even though I wanted to hang in there were pay freezes, promotion freezes, furloughs. It got to the point where even though I wanted to hang in there, my family and my commitments needed me to pursue something else because I wasn't able to make a living as much as I wanted to hang in there and eventually become an internal revenue agent. That never particularly happened. But one of the best things from the job was I had a lot of insight into what triggered an audit and what created problems. And I took that into the rest of my journey. So, would I wish to go back and do that all over again? Oh, heck no, nobody wants that. But am I a better person, better professional? Yeah, I wouldn't have traded it for anything.